Okay, welcome to Nakhon Phanom, the provincial capital of Nakhon Phanom province in the North Eastern Thailand. We're far away from Bangkok now, on the banks of the Mekong River, nearer to Vietnam than Bangkok, which is something that's apparent in the food here and some of the people. So I'm staying in this hotel, the Landmark Hotel, which is right opposite the landmark of Nakhon Phanom, the Naga. The Naga is like a river spirit, which was always worshipped in this area. So a few years ago they built this statue, and now people come from all over to pay their respects to the Naga spirit of the river. We'll have a closer look at that later. Okay, I will walk around. I've got to check in because of COVID-19. I've got to check in, so I'll turn the camera off briefly before I enter the river promenade area. But you can see it's a lovely town, as Thai towns go. Some nice cafes, restaurants, a 7-Eleven with a balcony. I think that might be the only one in Thailand. Yeah, so here's the COVID check area. Okay, so now we're back in the game. We are at the kind of worship point for the Naga. All sorts of superstitious, religious stuff here. And there's a few people there already paying their respects. Now I think the biggest draw for me, certainly of this town, is the view from the river, which I will show you now. So for most Thai people it's probably this temple aspect. You can see the hotel we were staying at has a lovely spot, but for I think most foreigners, the really popular part is the river view. And the river view really is quite something. So this is the Mekong River, and across the Mekong River is Laos, and it is just a sea of mountains, some beautifully oddly shaped ones as well, all the way as far as the eye can see on the horizon. Really lovely. In the morning the sun rises behind the mountains, and then in the evening it sets right behind us, so the mountains are lit beautifully by the sun in the evening. Unfortunately I've got to make this video around about 9:15 in the morning, so it's going to be very hot and the lighting is not ideal, but let's go for a walk. So in the evenings especially, this promenade along the river is packed with people, locals and tourists. There's music, a bit of street food here and there. Yeah, full of life. Lots of people walking, cycling, and also from here there are various piers, one of which is a ferry which in normal times takes people across the river for 30 baht, which is $1. But obviously foreigners can't really cross so easily here, because you've got to have your passport, a visa put in your passport to go to Laos. Yeah, you can see some piers. There's evening boats that go up and down the river with serving food, and as well as a ferry that goes across the river, but obviously not during the pandemic. You can see there, what a lovely view. Fantastic place. So we'll walk a little bit. So it's a green flag day today, which I think means swimming in the river is safe. I don't think I'll be swimming in the river, but not with the colour of it. So these friendly looking fellows here. Peepon, some kind of ghosts. So there's a few of these concrete figurines as you go along the river. There's the Instagrammable selfie sign for Nakhon Phanom, playing on its river heritage. You see lots of people in the evenings, especially in afternoons, standing outside in front of this, having their photos taken. So yeah, we'll walk along the promenade and then we'll double back on ourselves and come back into town through the streets, because they're also very interesting. So yeah, if you imagine in the evening, you've got a lot of activity on this promenade. I think I've got a few shots which I can maybe cut into this video showing the nighttime action. And it's a very nice spot, especially in the evening with the sun going down, to sit and look at the beauty across the river and taking the local slow life. Yeah, here we've got more examples of slightly odd concrete figurines. A noseless pig there. And two. Both piglets have lost their noses. Yeah, chickens and dogs coming up. Yeah, this area is famed for what the Thais call the slow life. It's still kind of geographically and culturally remote from Bangkok, and it has its own culture up here, and not too many foreign tourists. So it's still got some unique character here that maybe more touristy parts of Thailand have lost. One thing I do like about this place is there's a bike path that runs along this promenade, the green path here, and that goes all the way along the river for several kilometres, and it's kind of a nice touch, you know, makes it easy to cycle up and down, because the city of Nakhon Phanom is long and spread out across the river. It probably only goes back about a kilometre or so from the river bank, but is maybe 8 or more kilometres long from start to finish. There's somebody using the bike path, and the entrances to the various piers here, and all the while the mountains serving as a beautiful backdrop. Oh, they're watering the plants, so might have to be a bit careful. The camera isn't waterproof. Oh, I'm going to be a bit careful here, I think. There's probably nothing they like better than soaking a farang. Yes. It's just oh, wait a second. Don't fancy getting too wet. You see there the guy spraying the plants, which are all the way over here. I'm going to dip down here a minute for safety, so you can really see here the river piers, which in an evening can get quite busy with people queuing up to get on the various restaurant boats that float up and down the river. I went on one a couple of years ago, so I may be in to cut some footage with that. Music and food and a few beers, and up and down the river, and they go quite close to the Laos side. The guy's just asking me to move, so I don't want to get wet. Right. So yeah, this is the bike path, and you can see here the kind of communal outside gym. Keep you fit, that would. Something for the kids, something for the grown-ups. And then the bike path, which is right on the edge of the river around here. So I'm going to follow the bike path round, because there's some quite interesting riverside houses up here. This is the ferries that go across the river. As you can see, slightly less. You go down the Naga staircase and across the grass, I think, in the old days, but yeah, they're not quite as luxurious as the restaurant boats. So here we have the entrance to the fairly new promenade that allows you to walk on the riverbanks in this part of the town, which previously would have probably been just the main road and these houses. So yeah, you can see there the Lao ferries, and they go across the river. Oh, this looks like the ferry entrance nowadays. So you'd be able to go in there, buy your ticket. There's an immigration booth there for people coming from Laos to Thailand or returning, and you go down the steps and then you can enter the boats down there. But as I say, not really something foreigners can do very easily, and especially now you'd have to go into like a 2-week quarantine even if you set foot on the other side of the island, and probably lose your visas and everything else. So we'll stick with this side. So you see here the old street, which we'll walk down later. This gentleman. Yeah, so before this was built, there wouldn't have really been any way of walking along the riverbanks. It would have just been a kind of a jungle sloping down to the water's edge from these houses. Some of these are pretty cool. You see this place here probably hasn't changed much in close to 100 years. The little windows, I don't know if anyone is still living in this back part. Possibly. There's some activity under the stairs there. See a guy doing something. So yeah, you can't always tell whether somewhere's lived in here based on its condition. So these houses would have once had the most beautiful view of the river and the mountains the other side. Unfortunately now the view has been spoiled by the path, but it benefits everyone else, so I don't think there can be too much room for complaint there. So yeah, a variety of old wooden houses built up on the riverbanks. And a nice wide promenade, which in the evening there are a lot of cyclists going up and down here, and people taking selfies and photos. Here's another. Definitely lived in this one. Very, very decrepit looking place, but they live in there. I mean, sometimes you wonder what the land value is of these old houses. They could probably sell their old shack and become rich, but sometimes they choose not to. They like the traditional life, and that's the way they're going to stay. So some of these have become bars, which in non-pandemic times you can sit out on the balconies and enjoy a beer and look at the endless river view. Whether you can see it, there's a particularly cool looking mountain just behind the white house. On the other side of the bank there's a large white house, and behind it in the distance is a finger-shaped mountain. That looks pretty cool. And then there the mountains get quite a bit bigger and they disappear off into the distance, seeming to go on to infinity. Here's a rather overgrown old place, but no doubt somebody's still living in there somewhere. Although some of these old places, they kind of add character. If you almost hope that it won't turn into this. So much of Thailand, you know, the old stuff gets demolished and these new buildings that are often not particularly well designed or even well built get put up in their place, and after a few years they start to look really shabby and they don't really bring any character or beauty to the area. So here definitely someone living in this sea of greenery. Here you can see the pots and pans hanging up on the balcony. And next door to it is what I think is a coffee shop. We'll see. We'll walk down the street and we'll see these buildings from the front. In often cases they have other functions, and you may think that people maybe live out the back, but the front of the building is for business and commerce, and will be shops, restaurants, bars, cafes, barbers shops, all sorts of things. So yeah, there's quite a lot of these old wooden traditional kind of shack houses that would have been right on the riverbank up until a few years ago, and they're still here. But like I say, the front of them may well be something quite different to what you'd expect from looking at the back. But it's a nice spot, this place. It's not somewhere foreigners generally come, because it's quite remote. Back in the Vietnam War, it had a US base here, and that's been turned into a provincial airport. So for a small province, it's unusual for having an airport, but the airport's about 15 kilometres away from this town. So I think it's a long way to come if you don't have family in the area or treating it as part of a bigger road trip in this part of Thailand. But it is a very nice place. It's peaceful and it's interesting, and in a lot of ways it's quite pretty compared to other Thai provincial towns. And the view across the river is obviously pretty spectacular. The influence from the Vietnam War really extends down to the food. It's quite different to a lot of the Isaan food. Isaan, the North Eastern region of Thailand, is famous for very, very, very spicy food. Particularly the unripe papaya salad called som tam, which can be ferociously spicy. And grilled pork, grilled chicken with spicy sauces, various fish dishes. They're the kind of hallmark dishes of this region, but this particular province has very strong Vietnamese influence, with Vietnam being only perhaps 80, 100 kilometres as the crow flies across those mountains. And in the Vietnam War, a lot of refugees came across this way and have settled, and their influence here has extended to the food, where a lot of the local food is much, much milder than traditional Isaan food, and you see a lot of Vietnamese and Vietnamese inspired dishes for sale in the restaurants. Oh, something's in the flowers. So yeah, some quite attractive flowers seem to be growing here. A little bit of wildlife, the odd butterfly and bird, and probably a few big lizards knocking around by the riverbank somewhere. So you can see again a sort of a public space where people can sit out in the evening and look at the sun setting on the mountains across the way. So we'll walk up a little bit further and then I'll walk down the main street. So we'll walk up the riverbank, loop back on ourselves up ahead here and walk down the main street where there's a few interesting colonial buildings as well as the traditional kind of riverside shacks that have been turned into more kind of commercial venues these days. But a pleasant place to come, to stroll around, to do a bit of cycling. The area around the town has a few attractions as well. There is the house where Ho Chi Minh, the Vietnamese leader, lived at points during the Vietnamese War, and it's still left as a museum with his things left pretty much as they were, and it's a pretty place. Again, I might have some photos or video I can intercut to show that, and we're not going this time, but we've been there before. There's also the temple at Tatpanam, which is a very, very famous temple where many people in Thailand come to do a pilgrimage, where they walk around the central chedi, as it's called, the column, the central chedi of the temple, and they walk around that to pay pilgrimage, because there's a Buddha relic supposedly inside the temple structure. So the climate here is quite pleasant. It's a little bit cooler and drier, I think, than many other parts of Thailand, particularly you notice in the winter time, so months like December, January. It can almost be chilly at times of day, and during the night you'll see the locals wearing woolly hats and scarves and puffer jackets. I mean, myself, probably you get away with a pair of jeans and a sweatshirt or a hoodie or something, but yeah, it's definitely a different climate. I mean, right now it's pouring with rain in Bangkok, and has been for a long time, and here, I mean, it's just glorious weather, and it's not intensely hot, but as this is October time, so as November comes and December, it will get much drier and things will become a little bit yellow and brown, and it has a slightly different look. It's a little bit lusher this time of year, but the ideal time to come is probably December, January, and you can enjoy some really cool weather. As I say, almost chilly at times, but certainly very comfortable, very cool. You see the trees here, I think these are tamarind trees with the seed pods dangling down, and they're used for cooking. A sweet, brown, sticky sauce that can be used in cooking. Things are dipped into. And the riverbank itself left pretty wild here. Some nice flowers growing. I think they may have been planted by the local town council, but as you go further down you see reeds and the general mass of plants that you get here at the riverside. So yeah, we're just coming up to this building work. I don't know what's going on. Let's check it out. There's a lot of activity on this one. They're using bamboo to form a kind of scaffolding. Now, whether they're going to be building new piers perhaps for boats, we'll see, but you can see it's probably quite unlike building work in the countries you're from, unless you live in this part of the world. There you can see oil drums. Oil drums are used to make it float, and then bamboo leashed together, probably with wire these days, but traditionally it would have been with leaves and twine made from jungle creepers and things. So it looks like there's some busyness going on there, and they've already constructed some more down here. Yeah. Building Thai style. Be interesting to come back here in a year or so and see what it is they've built. Okay, looks like here's the project management area. So we'll go up these steps and along the riverbank a little further, and then we'll double back and walk along the main road for a bit and check out some of the old colonial buildings and the clock tower. Okay, I've crossed over the main road now, so I'm going to walk along the main road back into town. You can see it's the road and the footpath and the bike path carry on a long way out to the town centre, but we'll have a walk back along and look at some of the buildings, especially on this side of the river, where there are some interesting old colonial buildings, and a lot, because of it being the provincial capital, there's a lot of municipal buildings, courts and all sorts of provincial headquarters, which are housed in quite interesting old buildings. You can see here an example of an older building. So hopefully I won't be run over. Never can tell in Thailand, it's not the best surface to walk on, and the driving is dodgy at the best of times. So here we've got other older buildings. Judging by the flags, this is some kind of municipal building. I can read Thai a little bit, but sometimes these sort of signs are beyond me. The Ban Pak Suasapak. No. I have no idea. Sorry. Yeah, in Bangkok and a lot of the tourist places, obviously signage is usually in Thai and English, but here, away from things like road signs, you'll often find signs are just written in Thai, and the Thai words that refer to things like politics and governments and economics are often very complicated words to read. So another lovely old building there. One thing I like about this area is it has held on to a few of its old buildings, certainly in Bangkok in recent years. Historical buildings disappear at quite a rate to be replaced by often incredibly uninspiring concrete hotels, condos, shopping malls. It's a bit of a loss for the city, really. But here they seem to be holding on to their heritage a bit more and looking after it, which is nice. So here you can see a lovely old building, the Spirit House outside, the red Fanta, which is a staple offering for the spirits that reside in the Spirit House. And by offering them a lovely house to live in with a daily supply of red Fanta and rice, they will live there and not haunt your house. That's the idea. Walking down the street again, there's a lady watering the plants. So this looks like a tour. Oh yeah, this is the Tourist Authority of Thailand. Tourism Authority of Thailand. This is the Nakhon Phanom office, and it's a lovely looking place. Another spirit house there. So yeah, very nice building there. And here we have a hospital of some description. There's a few government hospitals. The traditional Nakhon Phanom style tuk-tuks there, slightly different to the ones you see in Bangkok and other places in Thailand, similar to the ones that run around in Laos, to be honest. So yeah, there's a few government hospital facilities here, but there's not really any private healthcare, so again makes life difficult, I guess, for foreign retiring expats. This maybe isn't such a popular area because the healthcare is slightly lacking, and also things like Western food are more difficult to come across. You don't really get the Western supermarkets and food importers around here. This is the senior complex, so probably daycare for old people. Traditionally done by the family, but in the modern age, where more people are having to work and people are travelling out to work, the oldest members of the family maybe have to go into daycare. Here. This is a school, and this is a lovely, lovely school. My wife's cousin actually went to this school. It's an idyllic looking place. The kids come out, and the view from the playground is pretty fabulous. And of course, back in the day when this road was not much more than a track, barely paved track, back in the 1970s, 80s, they had a very, very nice place to go to school. And it still is a school, but all the schools are shut for the October holiday. This part of Thailand's been very lucky with COVID, and this province is one of the few provinces that have had very minimal restrictions. So that's meant that children could continue to come to school here, whereas in most of Thailand the schools have been shut. But we're in October now, and that is a traditional month-long holiday for Thai school children. But they still have to wear their masks in school and have their temperatures taken and all the rest of it. This is I don't know what this is. I thought it was a temple. I don't know if they're selling these things or if, I don't know. There's many mysteries of this region. It's a very superstitious place. People still hold superstitions that kind of can almost seem a bit medieval to us in Western Europe and the States and whatnot, but here they're still going strong. So here we have a Thailand post with a giant recreation of a Thai post box with the 2 slots, local mail and other places. The post office, so that you can see this area is this side of the street. There's an awful lot of municipal buildings, hospitals, schools, post offices, and as we get further up there'll be more things like here, the police station and courts, and I think the mayor's house is along here. And so you see the police station. And they've got a Buddha shrine outside the police station. Nakhon Phanom Provincial Police. And interesting here, you'll see on the sign, the police sign, that it is written in English, Vietnamese and Thai. So, not something you see in other parts of Thailand, but here you will occasionally see Vietnamese script because of the refugees who settled here after the Vietnam War. Got a number of old buildings with very, very long names, so I'm not even going to attempt to translate. Sorry. But very pretty places. As you can see, some really nice old places. That is the Nakhon Phanom Courthouse. So it's the Courts of Justice. And he's just had a renovation, and it's looking very, very pristine. The Spirit House there as well. As we walk up, we come to another unfeasibly long name. These might be residential homes of government officials and the like. Yeah, there's some nice houses here which probably belong to officials of the local councils and the local judiciary and the police, etc. Okay. Now we get into the part of town now where the old wooden buildings that we walked past earlier, we can see them from the front, and as I say, they often look extremely different from the front as to the back, but we're kind of entering now more the old centre of town that's probably been here for more than 100 years. Probably longer than that, but over the years the houses will decay and be rebuilt. But there's some quite old houses along here, so we will check them out. Maybe from this side of the road to get a better view. Just have to be careful crossing the road. Prefer not to die. So restaurants. Yeah, you can see some of them have these old kind of almost like 1960s style concrete facades have been built, and yet the back of it will be a wooden shack. So there's a bit of shops. This side of the road is similar, cafes, souvenirs, a lot of Vietnamese restaurants. And you can see these sort of courtyards that lie between the buildings where people can sit and drink and eat in the evenings. And these are more the traditional style houses here, these one story with the wide wooden doors or metal shutters at the front. No other kind of windows or door. These are the traditional houses that you see here. Hello there. And on this side as well, both sides of the road here, the traditional houses here, the electricity wires running through the eaves. These areas are popular. This part of town on a Sunday is closed to traffic and becomes a walking street and a night market. So this, oh, here we got one of the provincial buses about to come past over this crossover. There's some pretty cool graphic signs saying Nakhon Phanom, very popular for people to be photographed in front of. And at night these signs light up, and these are bars and restaurants around this area. See the sign here, Mekong Walking Street. And again, that's the walkway we walked up earlier in the back of the houses. Another popular Instagram sign with another very nice font saying Nakhon Phanom. And these are all lit up at night. You see there over the road is the nice little coffee in one of the old traditional houses, little coffee shop. And now we're getting into what used to be, I guess, what would have once upon a time been the town centre. You can see the clock tower. This would have been the landmark of the town in the past, whereas now it's probably the Naga. But last night they had, on the Sunday night, the night market was lovely around here. All the streets were shut and the stalls were out on the road, and everything was lit up, and yeah, it was very scenic and atmospheric and picturesque. I remember in non-COVID times there were quite a few bars around this area. Oh, here's the local bike shop. The name, Chinese Thai Ku Yong Long. I'm going to try and be a bit careful of the traffic here. At some point I'm going to have to drive after this car, because there's double parking and the road gets a bit narrow. So it looks like this is a popular bar normally. Looks like it's having a bit of renovation. Or Naraka. The hipster cassette logo. And you can imagine when it's in full swing, and see the beer and the whiskey and the vodka bottles, but you can sit out here at the back and look at the view of the river. more cool graphics and Instagrammable places here. So lots of selfies taken around this area, no doubt. But yeah, this in the past I've seen this open and very busy bar full of people. Whether it'll ever return, who knows. And across the road, a noodle restaurant. It will also be busy on a normal evening. So we have the clock tower here. This used to be, I guess, the most famous landmark in town. And that was built 2503. That's 61 years ago, I think. And that was a gift from the government of Vietnam by the look of things. It's got the Vietnam text, so I believe somebody told me this clock tower was a gift from the government of Vietnam, probably to say thank you for letting the refugees or the and in the evening there was these fountains were going, so there's a little staircase up to the top where I can wind the clock, so it's a little bit fast. Penum University bus, you can see the road is quite busy. Traditional shops in here, restaurants. Actually don't know what they're selling in here. It's actually getting pretty busy here, so yeah, there's some 1960s style Thai architecture there behind the clock tower, and then a more traditional building there. And then in the town centre you see where I guess where there was more action, these double-storey buildings with similar shutter doors at the bottom, but then these balconies around the upper floors. So you can see this is a traditional sort of shop house. I don't really want to intrude by pushing my camera inside, because not all of them now are commercial properties. This one's got a picture of the old king, the late king, and then there's another little alleyway down to the riverbanks, and this one's been renovated on this side of the building. Yeah, so it's a Monday morning. Some of these places look like they're shut. This cafe here, Shugane, is probably open when the night market's on or people are around in the early evening. Public toilets, and this is the ferry over to Laos, the immigration for people coming and going to Laos. So this is the other side of that building where you can go down to the ferry. All shut at the moment because Thailand is pretty much closed off because of COVID. Down the end of that street is a restaurant and a popular kind of dessert shop, and then you've got some hotels here as we get into the 100 metres or so that you could classify as the main downtown centre. Now we will cross over because there's some interesting temples on this side. At night, when these temples are lit up, it's very, very pretty and atmospheric. Traffic's died down. Yeah, so here we have a Chinese shrine. Chinese shrine in here. Very nice. All the lanterns in the ceiling, and then the shrine itself. Paintings on the wall. The lions guarding it outside. And next to the shrine, oh, it's another shrine. And this one you can see they're like the joss-sticks, and they appear to be donating or leaving flowers here as an offering. It's a Buddha shrine, that one, I believe, by the look of it. And another pretty cool looking offering table surrounded by pots with lotus plants and a ferocious looking thing there. I wouldn't want to fall into that. So there's the river, the ever-present river and the mountains, serving as a beautiful backdrop to the town. And now here is quite a large Thai Buddhist temple, and lit up at night. As I say, this one is particularly lovely. So just have a quick look in here. I don't like filming too much in temples because there's people doing their sort of religious and community business, and they don't need tourists interfering really, but they don't appear to mind you having a look. Very pretty in the sunlight. Plenty of parking. Yeah, a fairly sizable temple to serve the town centre. So, Nakhon Phanom tourist map. This is Wat Okat Sibuaban. This is one of their main tourist attractions, and then there are numerous other temples here. And the new bridge, a newish bridge that goes between Thailand and Laos, the Friendship Bridge, unfortunately that is probably shut to all non-essential traffic at the moment. And then there's the Tatpanam waterfall, Tatpanam, the temple where the pilgrims go to walk around the central Chedi. So we are here on the map, and you can see there's an airport, and then there's numerous small towns, but this is a fairly remotely a fairly remote and sparsely populated area. This afternoon and tomorrow we will be in this town, Ban Peng, also on the banks of the river, and that is a very lovely area. So this is a indoor market. First came here about 12 years ago. It was the only place I came in the town. I was gobsmacked by the view across the river, but we just popped here quickly for one of my wife's relatives to buy some stuff from here. The sort of place you can buy just about anything. Maybe have a quick walk around. I don't know how happy they will be to be filmed, but see, toy shops, skateboards, Bluetooth speakers, sunglasses, torches, watches, fishing rods. The whole shop there seems to be dedicated to fishing and objects of worship. There's some weird things hanging there, some sort of fruit skins drying in the sun. Let's see that. We'll have an explore. I'm going to take this lens off the front of it. So this is the indoor Riverside Market. Toys, outdoor stuff, binoculars, knives, hats. Got the triangular Vietnamese style hat here. Thai flag. Mobile phone stuff. And the back of the market opens up onto the soys off the road that runs parallel a block behind. There's a bit of tourist souvenir type stuff here. Gold. Get the photos done. You can hear there's quite a few closed up units. It's a common sight nowadays in Bangkok, but less so here. But yeah, the economy's struggling all over Thailand, I think. It's getting more difficult for places to survive, especially if they're reliant on tourism. Because for months there's not even been any domestic tourism. There's all sorts of stuff here. Pretty much everything you could ever want. Reindeer.
Ở hai say, mỗi ngày hay đừng hát, thử ra hát, ở loi nương anh.
Mẹก็เป็นคนใช้ต่อให้ข้าจะถึงการรุนแรง
Lens back on, sunglasses. A nice spot to eat some local food. This is more the spicy Isaan style food. And look out at the river across the road. And these restaurants are very cheap. 40 baht, 50 baht per dish, which is around about $1.30 or a pound. The street food here, I think, is a better deal than street food in Bangkok. From what I've seen, it's these families have had the sort of same plot in the town for generations, and they specialise in a particular local dish, and they do it to perfection and offer it for very reasonable prices. And again, they have a sort of character and atmosphere that maybe you don't always see anymore in Thailand. The drinks guy going down the street. Business probably not so good, because the kids are on holiday. People looking at me, probably thinking, why is this guy talking to himself? Although I've got my mask on, so they can't see my lips moving. But there's a little bit of mobile street food action here. See what they're selling. We're just opposite the selfie sign in the centre of town. Oh, this one is Thai tea and soft drinks. This one is traditional Thai somtam and baked eggs and rice burgers, fish, fruits. It's a very old looking house here. And it's a prime spot in the middle of town. And here we are. I'll be careful here. Lethal Thai pavements. So this is the legendary multi-level 7-Eleven of Nakhon Phanom, where in an afternoon you can see many people enjoying a drink up there, or out here in the evening. Very quiet at the moment because at 20 past 10 it's starting to get very, very hot here. The sun is pretty much overhead now. Here we have the hotel I'm staying at, and another one next door, offering kind of all mod cons for the domestic tourists who come here. And this is, I can highly recommend this hotel and cafe, this Landmark Hotel and the Landmark Hotel Cafe. Really good, really enjoyed it. Staying here, fantastic room, great value at the moment, and the cafe serves really top-notch drinks. So, I'm going to cross over here. So it's one-way system. Loch Ness Monster there. I think that's meant to be the Naga, but so we have more municipal buildings. I think that's the forest department. And we're back to where we began now with the Landmark Hotel. and the main road that goes off to the other province, Nakhon Phanom, the neighbouring province. A new, long, very nice straight road. Takes about an hour to get to Nakhon, the capital of Nakhon province, and that's a nice university town. So the immigration office, where the tuk-tuks are parked outside, that is where foreigners who live here will come to get their visas renewed and do the various types of reporting you have to do for immigration here. Happy New Year 2021. Selfie spots down by the river again. This is a very popular area because of the Naga statue being here. And you can see they've actually got a souvenir shop here. On the other side of the river, the other side of the road, sorry, you've got a pawn shop, as in where you pawn your gold, not where you go to buy jazz mags. A restaurant, a popular local restaurant. And then shops. And there's a fancy-ish hotel there. Almost certainly with a coffee shop or something in the bottom floor. Good morning to you. Good morning. I'm very well, thanks. Hope you are too. Friendly locals. So yeah, there's a hotel there, the blue building, and then the river bank and promenade continues off a long way along here. So I don't think I'm going to go too far. If anyone's actually watched this all the way, well done. I've never done this vlogging and talking, walking stuff before in my life, so thanks for sticking with it. But I do love this place, and I find it an interesting spot, so hopefully if you're watching this you will too. You can always fast forward through the boring parts, of which there are probably many. The local linemen, the guys in green, are delivery men. The streets of Bangkok are absolutely full of them, but yeah, they will go to your cafe or restaurant of choice, pick up the food or drinks you want, and then come back and deliver it to your workplace or your home. And it's become a booming business in Thailand, especially during the pandemic. So as we get out here, it quietens down again. There's another big temple, perhaps not quite as old as the one we saw, so save that maybe for later. And the riverbanks here become increasingly overgrown, and I'm not sure how far I have to walk up, but I know that as you walk up you start to get some people who actually live on the other side, on the river side of the promenade. And it's quite interesting seeing their farms and small farms, you know, on the riverbanks. So hopefully I can make it up there. So in fact, I'll turn it off and let it cool down till we get somewhere more interesting. Okay, I've walked down the riverbank about 500 metres from the hotel I was staying at, and we're now at an area that appears to be selling produce from the people who farm on the banks of the river. So you can see here that now the space between the river and the promenade has got wider, and on this space now there are people growing things and little kind of small holdings set up. And actually on the riverbanks, it's a bit hard to see, but there are floating shacks where the people who farm live, as well as their boats. So there's a kind of a riverside community here, probably leading a very, very traditional way of life. I'm not sure how far I can go along here or whether there's any snakes I should be wary of, but we'll just walk along here to show you the small holding and the riverside life. You can see looks like nothing much is growing at the moment. But maybe there's going to be tomatoes and various kind of fruits and vegetables grown in the cooler season, because they do have a cooler season here, you know, and they're able to grow things that you can't grow further south in Thailand at any time of year. So we'll walk back up, checking for snakes or any other horrific things that might be lurking in the grass. So yeah, this is another sort of selfie spot, but I think you can come here and buy the produce. So yeah, peppers, carrots, tomatoes, cucumbers, salad greens, coriander, pak choy, spring onions, all sorts of stuff they will grow here. Potatoes and broccoli, bananas, apples. And across the road, back up the steps to the promenade, and across the road is the local temple to cover this part of the town. Again, not really a tourist attraction temple. There are the papaya trees there. With the papayas, unripe papayas, they'll be chopped down soon and shredded and turned into spicy papaya salad known as somtam, which is a staple dish of most of Thailand really, but particularly this region. And you can see the farmlands. This guy's waving to me, so let it go. Down here the farmlands extending down to the river, and they probably go on for about 100 metres by the look of things. Lots of papaya trees, banana trees, and then the fields which look ready to grow some of the cooler season crops. There's probably the salad crops and the tomatoes and the like. You see the papayas, or malagor as they're called in Thai, hanging from the trees. Yeah, here's a farmer with a pretty good setup here, and he's got his hut and he's playing his music. Hopefully he won't get a copyright strike from this, but he's got his little hut and his archway down to the river bank. I'm sitting there, sheltered from the sun. Check out that wheelbarrow there, eh? Check out all of that. Yeah, he's probably down there lying down, having a rest in the sun. Only fools like me walking around in the heat of the day, I think. But I haven't got a lot of choice because of the time we got here and the time we're leaving. This was really the only chance to do something like this walk. Beautiful place. So many places in Thailand have lost their character, but this area seems to have held on to its traditional way of life while still upgrading the infrastructure. You can see here there's a mobile cafeteria, mobile cafe, coffee shop. A couple of girls sitting outside. And then I'm going to walk in the shade before I collapse. More coffee shops. And up here as we go back into town. There are temples almost on every block, and quite a number of cafes and restaurants, bars. I'm pretty much, I would say, at the local market, maybe with a few domestic tourists. As I say, this is not often visited by foreign tourists, but if you ever did get the chance, I think you'd probably enjoy it. It's worth the trip. So there's a bed and breakfast place there, and then you can see the signs where in the evening the restaurants will open. One thing that's nice when you come from Bangkok is the roads. You get used to the insane traffic jams of Bangkok and the gridlock. And here, there's plenty of cars driving around, but there's rarely any kind of traffic jam, and the traffic just keeps moving, and you can get from one place to another very easily, and there's plenty of parking spaces on the street, which is very nice when you're used to something quite different in the hustle of Bangkok. So it's nice walking in the shade after being down on the riverside in the full sun. Slathered in sun lotion, it can only do so long before you start to burn. And so long is usually a lot shorter than you would expect when the sky's as blue as this. You see on the other side of the road, the mobile phone masts in Thailand are everywhere. Almost anywhere you go you can get a full 4G signal, even out at sea. Kilometres out at sea between Krabi and Koh Phi Phi, I remember having a full 4G signal. These masts are just everywhere. I think Thais can't live without their internet access, so it's become a big priority to make sure the coverage is as good as possible. The cyclists, popular area with cyclists. A rare glimpse of a fellow white person. Yeah, down here I noticed there's a little row of shops, cafes, restaurants, even a Japanese restaurant there. And the delivery guys hanging outside there, probably popular places for people to order. So yeah, bars, restaurants, Japanese, couple of Japanese there, a local one. But I like the fact here that so many buildings have been retained. Rather than knock the buildings down and build some concrete box structure, they've renovated what they've got, and the town looks all the better for it. Yeah, that bar's probably quite fun in the evening. But there's a lot of parking on this side of the road where I'm walking here, so in the evening the Thais will tend to drive everywhere. People won't tend to walk very far. Probably drive from their hotels up to these bars, restaurants, or local people driving from their homes and parking up here and going to them. walk on the grass for a bit. There's no shade now, so back to the sun. Right. But we're nearly back to where we started from. If anyone has got this far, you deserve a medal. But we're nearly back there at what I'd call the landmark Naga in the city centre, town centre. And there isn't much along here, which is why I turned it off before. But I think I'm going to go up a side street, because earlier I saw one of the old 1950s, 60s cinemas that were so popular around Thailand. One of those being demolished, and it wasn't completely demolished yet, and it still had a lot of the old sort of almost historic frontage of the cinema from back in the glory days, really the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. All over Thailand they're disappearing because such big buildings that are rarely used now, difficult to repurpose for anything else. They tend to get demolished, even though they have often some kind of interesting architecture. So yeah, I'm going to dip down the side of this temple into the road that runs parallel a block away and show you the cinema. So I will switch the camera on again when I get across the road. Okay, I've crossed the road, just about made it alive. The traffic won't slow down even at a zebra crossing. You can see I'm walking up here, and there's some hotels and the like on this side, and then there's this peaceful side road down the side of the temple that leads to the second road, if you'd like to call it that, along which there's a lot of local businesses to serve the local population rather than the tourist focused stuff at the Riverside Road. People still live here though in their old houses like they would have done for years, decades. So you've got the temple one side, and the other side you've got people's houses. It's quieter, so I think they've stopped the demolition. This big concrete building on the corner here was being hacked at relentlessly this morning, unless they've already pulled it down. They had a huge demolition machine going full tilt. Oh no, I can see the holes in the wall, so they're probably taking a break for lunch. Leave the mad dogs and Englishmen out on the street in the heat of the 11 o'clock sun. So yeah, pretty crazy what you see here. This is the old cinema being torn down. They haven't even bothered clearing out the curtains from the inside. It's just pull it down as it stands. There's quite a lot of demolition being done since this morning. There's just a little hole peeping through. Now the whole side of the building pretty much is gone, and you can see what would have been the kind of 60s modernist architecture that's decorated the side of it. Mostly gone now. Inside, the curtains and the decorations around the screens. Trying not to get it run over. So yeah, these are the kind of the streets where the local people do their thing. Still temples, restaurants, 7-Elevens, but with a much more local focus. So here is a crane. I better be careful where I can go. Yeah, they're pulling it down, as you can see here. I don't want to get killed. They've got the old through there. You can see the demolition underway, and the old entrance to the cinema. Dolby and various Thai film stars of the past on the top now, but I've got to be a bit careful of this crane. I don't want to die, so I'm going to be careful of the crane as they're hoisting away some of the like this. It's going to be a little bit tricky getting around this. I'm going to pause a second. So yeah, last chance to see the old 1960s cinema of Nakhon Phanom. It's a Britney Spears though, so maybe not as old as I thought. But anyway, various film stars of the past and the Dolby signs. And this was like Cinema 1 with 2 shows a day, one at 12:30, one at 8 PM. Not to be here much longer, unfortunately. Who knows what will be built in its place. And this is a hotel that looks like it's still going to carry on operating. The hotel that's built kind of as part of the cinema complex, so I presume they'll save this part and the hotel will remain. You can see down these side streets now you get car maintenance shops and but still a few fancy cafes, massage places. A lot of barbers and hairdressers in this area. I'm not sure why, whether there's any special reason, but did notice there's an unusual amount of barbers and hairdressers around the town. So this place, since 1988. Old. Yeah, there's this nice coffee shop here. I think it's pretty quiet today, Monday morning, normal working day. You can see these roads go on for quite a way off into the distance. And this road heads out of town. But not much further in the distance there's a yellow like royal propaganda gate. And under that archway the town kind of peters out, so it's not enormous, but it's long and sort of snakes its way along the riverbanks. So I think we'll call it a day there. So if anybody has stayed this long, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe, and see you in the next video. I'm planning to make one tomorrow, walking around a much smaller and very remote town, and that might be interesting. So thanks very much. See you next time.